Okay, so we are just about to get started with the panel. So let me introduce the panelists. So we have in the panel Iyad Ahmad, right? He's the CTO of Arabic.AI, and our Rania Khalaf, Chief AI Officer, WSO2, and Alan Schmoll. Did I get that right? Yeah, okay. Executive Vice President, Platform Vistra, and Mahesh Salaria, Head of Architecture, HSBC Canberra General Insurance, right? So let's start, and thanks for coming for the panel. So I guess we will get started with, you give a brief intro to what your company is doing and where you are in your AI journey.
Sure. You can start. Me? Okay. So, yeah, my name is Iyad Ahmad. I'm the CTO at Arabic.AI. So I have 24 years of experience in the technology, and 8 of them more closer to the NLP and AI. Terjuma is a 17 years old company. So we started work just as a translation and content generation company. In 2016, we ventured more into technology. We invested, and actually we built like multiple workflow automated systems just to do the translation and content generation. Last month, fortunately, we got like a Series A round of $50 million announced just for Arabic.AI, which is the domain that we own and the products that we work on. Mainly, we do model fine-tuning, which is SLMs, most of them, agentic workflow building, and application layer in some cases. Yeah, this is in a nutshell who I am and what we do. Over to you, Rania.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rania Khalaf. I'm the Chief AI Officer at WSO2. By now, you've probably heard a lot about WSO2, so I'll just highlight in our AI journey, right? We have 2 areas we're looking at. One is how to accelerate all of you in using our products with embedded agents and co-pilots, as well as how to help you take advantage of AI by infusing it into your application through connectors to models, through an agent building framework, agent identification and authorization, and so on and so forth. So,
Hi, everybody. Hello. Hi, Alan here from Vistra. We're a corporate services provider, which does things like accounting, payroll, legal entity management. And AI for us is 2 parts. The one part is our conversational agent that's built with agentic AI frameworks. And it's there to do 3 things, there for advisory, there for reporting on customer data, as well as executing workflows, such as adding a director to a company, maybe an example of that. So I'd call that, those are synchronous AI systems. The asynchronous systems are kind of what we use on the back end to process unstructured data, be it legal documents, be it bank statements, be it voice notes, whatever it may be, to pass that data, to structure it, and then use it for whatever needs there may be. And eventually we'll probably look to bring those 2 things together at some point. Nice to be here with you all.
Yeah, hi everyone. This is Mahesh Salaria. I represent the Canara HSBC Life Insurance here. So we are into the life insurance business. It is started by the Canara and HSBC banks. So it is a joint venture of both the banks. So Canara is the 2nd largest bank in India, and HSBC is a global company. So this here we are securing the future of the individuals by providing the insurance. And we are working on a lot of initiatives. Though recently we worked on a underwriting co-pilot, which is kind of underwriting the risk of any individual and providing the underwriters the assistance so that there is no risk to the company as well as the organization. So we'll discuss in more details there. Yeah, happy to hear.
Thank you. So Rania, when you build these AI products, you have this initial excitement, right? You want to deliver this experience, then you want to take it to production. But these complaints about, are these really delivering the business value? So what are your thoughts on this? How do you see this?
Yeah, that's a great question, especially as we look at the evolution of how AI development has evolved over time. And if we look at traditional data science teams that are mainly folks that were usually working with Excel files, small data, potentially in notebooks, and doing things just once. As we get into AI and generative AI capability, we get much closer to distributed systems. And then even if you have a model, now you need to connect it to streaming data, you need it to be live, you need potentially real-time responses, latency matters. So all these things are a bit out of the domain of the traditional data scientist. And as we move to AI and the AI scientist, what's been happening now is that building AI applications became really a full team sport. So the model is only playing a small part. And especially as we see with generative AI, the foundation models are usually run by someone else, and you're just using them. So what we're really thinking about is how can we really enable building these applications in a way that is scalable, that is production ready, and making it so that the AI team and the folks working with AI can really focus on the business need that they have and the business data that they have. So that's one part where I think a lot of tools and platforms can really help you so that your team can focus on your core differentiator and not on building plumbing. The other part of your question is about how do you check that you're building value. And I think that's where it really matters to look at AI as a tool and not as an objective, right? Your objective is not to bring more AI, right? Your objective is to make something faster, something better. So you need to think about what should you measure and how do you know if these tools are helping or hurting, right? So one example, for instance, is at one point, GitHub Copilot had a dashboard that you could see if you had the enterprise plan, you could see how many of your, are your developers accepting the suggestions from these assistants or not? Are these suggestions being accepted and is the code getting committed? So there are some ways to measure if you're getting value. And I think that's really important as we think of how we go into the future of these things.
Thank you. So AI, building AI apps, we have seen even in our teams is, it's always about trade-offs, right? Some teams want to optimize for accuracy and some want to have, better latency, and people use techniques like caching and so on to improve or maybe change the models that have better latency, and also cost also become a significant part of this equation, right? So the question to Alan is, how are you, dealing with these trade-offs within? You may have some other factors that come to play as well, right?
Yeah, and I think it's a good reminder to any engineers, there's only really 3 metrics anybody cares about. It's speed, quality, cost, and it's always optimizing for those 3. Actually, you could apply that to most things in life, probably even relationships, to some extent. So I think what usually happens early on in journeys with AI engineers is they will optimize for accuracy first.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to get complaints from the users that it's hallucinating and giving a bad answer. So they usually go and buy the biggest and most expensive model that's available on the market and start with that, which is a good place to start. But then quickly you realize that those models are inefficient. There's high latency on them, and they can also get very expensive quite quickly as well. So for us that was Anthropic. Great models. Very, very high quality, great reasoning, very secure, all the stuff you need, but they are quite expensive to use. And then you start actually asking yourself, do you need these heavy models? So with us, for the conversational assistants, speed's obviously quite important. It's a synchronous process. People want responses quite quickly, so then we start optimizing for reducing latency. And there's quite a bit we could do with the the agent frameworks to help with that. But the easiest thing to do was just to drop it down to a smaller model, which is one of their models called a Haiku, which is, I think, their second or third model, which is quite good for conversation. And actually, the accuracy was pretty good as well. We actually couldn't really notice the difference in terms of reasoning. So I think that's sort of typically what the next step is. And then cost, nobody cares about at the early stage.
Yeah.
And then eventually somebody goes, how much is it going to cost in 12 months' time? People go, oh, bugger, I'm going to have to reason it. I'm going to have to figure this out again. And I think that's when you probably start looking at fine-tuning small language models to start reducing that cost. But obviously that's a lot more complexity in terms of doing that. You've got to set up data pipelines. It's more of a machine learning project, whereas the previous one was more prompt engineering and RAG. So I think it's optimizing for reasoning first, then latency, and then eventually, like most things in life, cost becomes an issue. And then you start looking at fine-tuning your models as one option. I'm sure there are plenty of others that you can do as well. But for us, fine-tuning is where we're currently looking.
I see. That's great. So if you take a look at these agents, I think now you talked about these conversational agents, right? So those agents will require these real-time, kind of interactions. But then you have this other category of agents that run in the background, right? We call them the ambient agents, right? So for those agents, this latency at least is not a requirement. I mean, do any of you guys have such ambient agents deployed?
We do a little bit on processing of data. So, for example, processes like producing annual returns for companies is taking all of these really messy bank and asset statements. Accuracy is really important. Latency doesn't matter at all. So with that, we use the heavy models. So we go back to Cloud Sonnet. We set all the configuration at 0, the P's, the K's, the temperature. They all go down to 0, so they're getting as close to deterministic type of outcomes as you possibly can. And some of those actually take 8-10 hours to process some really big documents, which is fine. They just get thrown in and then wait for a response and all good. So we need to think a little bit about how we integrate that with a conversational assistant, to get that user feedback right, because that's a long time to wait. But at least from the end goal there, 8-10 hours is not really an issue. So maybe that's an example of like an asynchronous process or an ambient process for us.
Yeah. Okay. So Mahesh, you mentioned this very interesting use case, right? About what was it called? Underwriting Copilot, right? So in that use case, you in fact process a lot of personal data, right? So of course the bias is going to come to the picture. And so how do you make sure that this is not affecting the decisions that this Copilot is making?
So our underwriting Copilot takes a lot of input from the bureau data, as well as the medical reports and historic data, as well as we have underwriting guidelines. Those are set by the regulators also. So biasness reduction, we are removing with the 3 stages. One is human in the loop, where whatever the decisions that underwriter is giving is the agents are working on those and see what is the feedback that we are getting from the human and putting it back to the AI engineers. And then is the second layer is a retraining of a complete set, where any output or maybe a biasness is coming, we remove those parameters also. And then third level is then we have an audit process. So historic or the decisions has been given by the physical underwriters, and auditors are there. Auditors are done by the regulators. So wherever there is a wrong decisioning is done, so we remove it and then retrain the model. So that's how we are utilizing it. So majorly we are relying on the human in the loop and the feedback system.
Okay, but this human in the loop, how much of an effort is that
So it's just 14-15% that we are taking. Otherwise, just all the training and other retraining is happening, and reweighing the certain parameters so that those parameters are getting more weightage, and next time those issues are not coming into the picture.
And what is your retraining period like?
So we are doing it every month, and then there is a depending on the models also. Lot of new models are coming, right? So we are utilizing, for example, Gemini 2.5 was there. Then there is a new versions are coming every 6 months now. So it is dependent on like what exactly you are doing. So rather than retraining on the previous model, it's better to use the latest models and then see the accuracy there. So that's what we are following.
Rania, you have any feedback on the topic?
Yeah, I did want to add that this brings up a very important question about how you evaluate your models and their performance, and what do you do when there's changes to test that the thing still works as expected. And this is where there's a lot of effort being put into the research around the agents and generative AI in general, because these things are probabilistic. So you call it twice with the same prompt, it comes back with a different answer. So it's very hard to test these, and you need some methodology or some data set benchmarks and so on to keep making sure that, especially with the advances so quickly, so if every 6 months you're potentially moving to a new model, you want to make sure you didn't lose any of the things that you had working.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so you have been working on small language model for quite a bit of time, if that right?
1 year almost.
1 year, right. And these are mostly the translation models,
Yes.
if I understand. So what is your process, and how do you see the accuracy of these models, how you are evaluating the accuracy, because accuracy is a key
Yes.
metric that you'll have to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now we started actually with a very small models, which was like 8 years now, just for machine translation, where we cover like 100 languages. And they used to work on CPU, fortunately. I mean, no cost here. Now, with having like more parameters, you require like more compute. And if you have like lots of workload, as my colleagues mentioned, the cost will start to increase. So calling API keys looks cheap at the beginning, but when you use it a lot, you'll find your bill like $15,000 or $20,000 a month, and you live with it, right? This is the curse of the credit card, where you don't feel it. So this is the difference between having a proposal or pay as you go, right? So having your own model will start to be justified, where like one server costs you like $5,000 can cover all of your needs and the client's needs. However, here there is a trade-off where toxicity will start to show up, or hallucination, right? So you need to add more guardrails, which will cause some delays, right? However, if the task works well for generative AI, then why not? I mean, let it take 3 minutes. Sometimes our users came say, yeah, it takes 3 minutes. You used to do it with 3 days. I mean, you used to finish this task in 3 days. Now you're complaining about 3 minutes. Wait 3 minutes. So what? Now sometimes you can do like parallel tasks. And having these guardrails is very important, just to make sure that the output is not deviated, and to set like some guidelines to make sure that it follows the guidelines. And here, actually, you mentioned a very, very good example, which is the agent to agent. So the idea in the agentic platform, you can read the agent card, right? You see the inputs and the output. And now, currently, we are covering just the RAG and the content generation, because you cannot predict the output. We read the card, we create automatically an agent to validate, to evaluate this agent.
Agent card makes that process easier.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So, and you also mentioned about so where is the data set coming? Is that, you mentioned that you generate it to some level, and is that...
Now, the data set for the evaluation, we synthesize the data set. So if it is a RAG, for example, agent, you simply take some chunks, synthesize some questions, getting getting the accurate answers from bigger model, which here it's very important to use the closed source model, right? So you get the predicted output, then you run it over your model, and you compare it also with a closed source model, right? And then actually I saw one of the slides where it says, for example, how is it doing in terms of clarity, transparency? Maybe Mariam showed it on the screen. And these are, I mean, every agent or task has its own metrics. Yeah. And there are like lots of tasks now. Deep Eval is one of them, or Rouge, or I forgot, Ragas. I mean, there are lots of out-of-the-box evaluation framework that you can utilize, or you build your own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So since we are running out of time, let's do one last sort of a question. So of course, with AI, we cannot predict what's going to happen in next 10 years, right? So in the short term, how do you see that this is going, and what would be the main challenges in short term? Let's start with Mahesh.
So what I believe is, like, for example, everybody is working on a very generic use cases right now, right? It is going to be a domain-specific use cases, and everything will get stitched together. So I think A2A protocols and others will play a lot of roles. Maybe MCPs are coming into the picture. So while right now, if you are developing something, you need to stitch a lot of APIs and data sources, right? And everybody was working on a data lake before, right? Or maybe APIs integration platforms. I don't think that's needed. It's more about the context you're setting, integrating with each other, and you are done. So development cycles will reduce. A lot of business use cases will come into the picture in the coming time. Yeah.
I'm going to give a non-tech answer to that. I think the challenge is change management. So I think the technology is moving fast. I think the technology is actually well ahead of what organizations can actually consume. At this point, I think the big important thing for us is think about the change management. So think about the people, think about the processes, bringing colleagues along on this journey, particularly those that are going to get impacted from AI. I think is a real challenge. So I think that's where there's going to be a lot of focus and resources going forward as to how to how to manage that. And there's generally kind of two ways to do it. One way you can just push it into the existing organization. The other way is you can create a new organization on the side and then sort of just lift and shift customers over to that, as well as also colleagues and professionals. And there's probably a hybrid version as well. But I think certainly we see in our space there's a lot of focus on the tech, which is good, but sometimes the change management is not really thought about too much, which can be frustrating when you build great tech and then it's not accepted. I think there was a statistic last year that's only something like 15% of successful POCs actually made their way into production. Successful POCs. So they actually work fine, but they're rejected by the organization 80% plus of the time. So people and processes, don't forget that one.
Rania.
I will leave some for my keynote in an hour or so. But I do want to mention something that I won't talk about then. First, nobody knows. Like, if anyone is sure what's going to happen in AI, it's not going to happen, right? This stuff is moving so quickly. And there's been a lot of things that have come out of left field that have completely wiped other things out. I think one really interesting way to think about these technologies that we've been discussing quite often is to think about it like electricity, right? So in the beginning, when electricity first came around, what people did was on the factory floor, they had gas lighting. So they just replaced the gas light with an electric light bulb, right? So that was the first stage of transformation. At that point, you couldn't imagine, that you will be, doing Gen AI and having computers and having robots that do part of the manufacturing and so on and so forth, right? But what could have been done is to think about, okay, now I have this electricity running through my factory floor. How can I reimagine what it enables and rethink the work that I do given this capability? And that is going to be transformational, and I think it will be very disruptive in a good way, right? Like things will really accelerate, but I think companies that don't think about it that way are going to be much slower. So I think it's about a bit related to what you were saying, right? It's about also the workflows and not just adopt into the workflow, but sometimes you have to rethink it. And that is going to require a very tight coupling between the technical folks and the subject matter experts in the verticals, the bankers, the lawyers, the whoever is the insurance, what do you call them? Yeah. Insurance people. The biologists, etc. And that is going to be a new thing. The software engineers won't be able to sit in the side any longer, right?
Thanks, Rania. You can conclude.
Yes, I second the change management thing. I told you yesterday, Malath, I mean, users, they start to search for mistakes, right?
Yeah.
Even, I mean, that's why they don't forgive the machine, but they forgive themselves, right? So this is human. So if a machine did a mistake, they would start, yeah, this will ruin our image or, deliverables. However, if they do mistakes, then it's about, sorry, just to fix it, and that's it. And this is actually by the client too, because it's risking, in a way, it's risking their position. So adoption is very important, and justification, because lots of people, they want to enter AI, but they don't know what to do. So if it is a small task, then you cannot justify the price, right? But by time this will become even better. Just last thing, if I take the software engineering and how they evolve, when I started to push having LLM or using like tools, IDEs that supports this, they started also to search for mistakes. However, I can find mistakes more than them. I can run and do code review and find like lots of mistakes in their code. Where is await here? Where is Redis? Why didn't you use this? And I didn't do anything. I just do like automatic code review. So until the time comes and they started, they need to use it, or they are obsolete, or they will be out of business.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.